Oh boy, it's your favorite John Oliver, the guy who lies just like every week. So I figure I would help you guys out. And he's got a video he put up. It's got 1 million views in 8 hours because that's what they do. And he's lying, of course. He's lying about everything. Most of these liberals are lying. And the thing about news and commentary on YouTube and social media is that, you know, for me, on my show, my morning show, this show, Tim Guest Style, I'll show the news article. And it, like Wall Street Journal, for instance, I've got Wall Street Journal and the Hollywood Reporter pulled up, and we'll talk about this. What John Oliver does is he pulls selective quotes, not the full article, and then uses jokes and analogy to cover up the manipulations. And I think that's probably why liberals in this country believe things that aren't true. So let me just preface this video by saying we've got the articles pulled up here. This is from the Wall Street Journal. The company leaders worried it would make things worse because he wanted to address the firestorm. As Hollywood Reporter put it, he was not planning on apologizing. He felt that he didn't need to apologize and that he was going to criticize MAGA for taking him out of context, is what they're saying. What is wrong with this stupid website? There you go. Okay, Hollywood Reporter, you're a bad website. Let's play.
Dive straight in with our main story tonight concerning the fact that on Wednesday, this happened.
Overnight, ABC pulling late-night talk show host Jimmy Kimmel off the air, hours after a threat from the head of the Federal Communications Commission. Brendan Carr called for Kimmel's suspension over comments earlier this week on Jimmy Kimmel Live.
Let's just pause real quick, and I'll explain to you the manipulation. Brendan Carr appeared on Benny Johnson's podcast and didn't call for a suspension. He said affiliates should preempt his show if he's going to make false statements of this degree. Now, they're claiming that he said, by saying we can do this the easy way or the hard way, and there may be an investigation, that Donald Trump used the FCC. However, the actual story, according to the Wall Street Journal, is that advertisers and affiliates called the network expressing concern about Kimmel's show. Now, you can argue that affiliates were concerned, but the affiliates are not facing the brunt of the FCC's ire. Disney was. Advertisers don't have to worry about it at all. Their concern is consumer backlash. So now that Jimmy Kimmel is going to try and lie and claim Trump did it with the FCC, I've already preempted him and shown you that wasn't the case.
A conservative influencer Charlie Kirk's death. ABC pulling the plug. A spokesperson for the network saying Jimmy Kimmel Live will be preempted indefinitely. President Trump weighing in, calling the decision great news for America.
Yeah, ABC pulled Jimmy Kimmel's show indefinitely, and the president apparently thinks it's great news for America, which is just a weird response to have. Not to be fair, the weirdest response he had to anything this week, given that he described his dinner with the royals by saying he ate, and I quote, whatever the hell they served us. But still pretty fucking weird. And look,
that's kind of funny.
Kimmel is now one of many who face consequences for comments in the wake of Charlie Kirk's murder 11 days ago, with workers being fired or placed on leave over posts about him. And very quickly, I was honestly inclined to wait to engage with the back and forth over who Charlie Kirk was and what his legacy will be, at least in part because we're taping this on Saturday. His funeral hasn't even taken place yet. What I will say is, a person getting shot is tragic, and a person getting shot for their ideas is horrifying. That is true no matter what those ideas are. And I also recognise that for many, especially those who were the targets of some of Kirk's ideas, it has been hard to stay quiet as they see flags lowered to half staff and hear claims that he debated things the right way. But setting all of that aside, it does seem like some are now willing to weaponise Kirk's death to do things they've been wanting to do for years, whether it's going after liberal groups, trans people, or their remaining critics in the media, and under some shamelessly flimsy pretext, all of which brings us back to Jimmy Kimmel. Because look, it is not news that the administration's been wanting to get rid of shows like his. In fact, it's such an open secret that last Sunday, when we won an Emmy for writing, one of our writers opened his thank you speech with a line that was followed by a camera cutaway that now feels pretty prescient.
Thank you so much. We share this category. We are honored to share it with all writers of late-night political comedy, while that is still a type of show that's allowed to exist.
So let's... Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Yes.
Let's try this, because it's absolutely insane the way they're framing all of this, but they have to do it to justify their political worldview. Jimmy Kimmel's ratings were plummeting before ABC suspended him. Oh boy, look at the New York Post is having a heart attack. We can take a look at... Okay, apparently we can't take a look at it. Maybe I got to do this. Let's try that. Jimmy Kimmel... No, The New York Post website just doesn't work, I guess. All right. The ratings were 1.1 million total, down. Look at me trying to reload this. Let's try that again. It was down 43%, and in the key demo, 129,000 viewers. So for many of you who are watching this and don't know, typical CPMs, actually, I can probably just pull up a video of comparable views. Let's just see this one. 125,000 views. Let's take a look at how much money it made. $500. Estimated revenue. To be fair, that's probably running multiple ads. YouTube ads are a little bit low. At 120,000 views, I might be able to pull in a couple grand, maybe like 1,000 or 2,000 from a single ad read. So if you're doing a full hour-long show and you're going to cram in some 30-second reads, they're a little bit cheaper because, usually online it's about a minute. I would ballpark at 129,000 views in the key demo because, let's be real, 1.1 million, not bad, but that's like 900,000 that are older and not the money demo. While you can still make money off them, your CPMs are going to be a couple bucks. So if I'm just ballparking here based on the numbers that I have, Jimmy's Kimmel Show maybe at 129,000 key demo plus $1 million, 10,000 per episode. If he does a couple ads, maybe he can do like 10 or 20,000 per episode. That ain't bad. Don't get me wrong. You're being like, whoa, homeboys, bring it. Well, the 900,000 older folks, not bad. You're going to make money off that. It's good. It's not going to be as valuable. 129,000, roughly $500 per read, maybe 1,000 per read, and he can maybe fit in 4. So maybe like $4,000, and then with the older folks at a higher rate, it's like maybe 15 to 20,000 is fair. Is that going to sustain his show and his staff? It's not. It's not. That's why Colbert was losing so much money. So my estimation right now is, with the advertisers threatening the show already, Disney was probably like, dude, you lose money as it is. Your ratings have dropped 43% this month. Your show is spiraling out. And then what did Jimmy Kimmel do? He refused to apologize. When asked by the Hollywood Reporter, a source said Kimmel was not planning on apologizing. He felt that what he said didn't require it.
Yeah, that is pretty eerie. Now, obviously, our writer Daniel did not know the future. On some level, that is just a coincidence, like when a young Shirley Temple accepted an Oscar in 1935 by saying, "Thank you very much for this." On January 28th, 1986, the Spaceship Challenger will suffer a catastrophic failure, killing 7 people. Kind of spooky stuff.
C- Joe. I get
it. It's not just a coincidence, because everyone knew the administration had it in for Kimmel. Even Daniel knew that. And to be honest, he doesn't know a ton of stuff. 2 weeks...
Donald Trump doesn't like Kimmel or Seth Meyers or Fallon or Colbert. And he doesn't like them not because of who they are, what they've done. He's been on their shows. He doesn't like them because every single night, all they do is say what Trump does is bad. There is no circumstance where he is good, up to the point where Jimmy Kimmel argued that Charlie Kirk's assassin was a Trump supporter. These liberals are telling you, they're telling everybody, that the man who killed Charlie Kirk was in fact one of you. That wasn't. It wasn't. And that's the game that these people are playing.
Weeks ago, he was arguing that Alfred Molina is more famous than Bad Bunny. He's a very good writer, but he's wrong about a lot of things. And for what it's worth, he will never be speaking publicly on our behalf ever again. Because we're now terrified he's going to drop another fucked up fortune cookie.
Well, I get it's a joke, but this is what these liberals don't get. Alfred Molina is famous among a certain cohort, Bad Bunny. If I went to older folks and said Alfred Molina, they'd be like, oh, yeah, he's in a bunch of these movies, and I know him from Spider-Man. And he was even in a recent Spider-Man, which made $1 billion. So older crowd probably knows who he is. They don't know who Bad Bunny is. Bad Bunny is well known among younger people, largely Gen Z, somewhat millennials. So this is a silly point that liberals don't seem to understand, is that generations differ, I guess.
But the pretext that's been used to indefinitely suspend Kimmel's show is just laughably weak, because while you may have seen headlines saying he got in trouble for remarks about Charlie Kirk himself or even remarks about his death, that's not strictly accurate. The comments that got him in trouble weren't about Kirk. In fact, Kimmel's first comments after his murder were a post reading, "Can we just for one day agree that it is horrible and monstrous to shoot another human?" On behalf of...
That is what he said after his show. My understanding is this was after... Oh, wait, I'm sorry. They're saying this September 10th? Let me make sure that's accurate. I'm assuming it's It's accurate. Because we pulled that one up too. Yeah, that is accurate, yeah.
Of my family, we send love to the Kirks and to all the children, parents and innocents who fall victim to senseless gun violence.
And so that's fine. I mean, it wasn't senseless gun violence. It was a targeted assassination for political reasons.
What got Kimmel in trouble was a passing reference on Monday night. Now, at the time, there were still rumours flying around regarding the killer's motivations, including that he was on the far right, something that Kimmel...
That they made up and lied about. We knew from the get-go because they held a press conference and they released the information. We knew. At the bare minimum, law enforcement investigation had exposed that this man was likely left aligned and motivated. Liberals fabricated this. And if Jimmy Kimmel based his information off of the actual investigation and not the crackpot cult rumor mill, he wouldn't have claimed that a conservative Trump supporter murdered one of their greatest advocates.
Alluded to like this.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
In reality, what was happening was that the law enforcement officials involved in the investigation had came out and said there were anti-fascist and trans things engraved on the bullets. There were. Bella Ciao is not a Groyper song. This is a lie from the left. They fabricated this because they're trying to justify Charlie's murder and deflect the blame from a guy. This man, the alleged assassin, is moderate Democrat. That's the reality. His ideology aligns with moderate Democrats, not the far left. He, as far as we can tell, wasn't putting up Marxist-Leninist quotes. He wasn't affiliated marching with Antifa or anything like that. It looks like he was just a mainstream online liberal. And that doesn't mean every liberal everywhere is responsible. They're allowed to have their opinions. It doesn't mean that just because they say you're a fascist or Nazi or whatever, they're responsible for a murder. But you can at least acknowledge the motivating factors and say, let's make sure we espouse a message of nonviolence and condemn this. They didn't. They lied. And Jimmy Kimmel knew, because you will not convince me that with the hundreds of millions of dollars, whatever they spent on a stupid show, his writing team didn't just Google it. But by all means, if you want to make the argument that they get their news from random blue sky accounts who make things up, and that's the pretext and underlying information source for their show, okay, fine, I accept that too, I guess, but I'm not going to absolve them of their responsibility. I think he did it on purpose.
Yeah, that was it. Weirdly, I was actually a guest on his show that night. And I didn't even register that comment, and that's only partly because I wasn't really paying attention.
And it's because you guys live in a deranged reality. Okay, a delusional state. And I'm going to say it again. Law enforcement came out almost immediately and said that they recovered the weapon. It corroborated numerous reports from the Wall Street Journal, CNN, the New York Times, broken by Louder with Crowder, that this individual had engraved anti-fascist and trans-aligned messages, memes. Yes, notice his bulge. It's an online meme referencing furry and trans communities. It is not known to most people. Oh, Bella Ciao is a very esoteric song sung by anti-fascists. In fact, some of these people in New York were singing it at a Charlie Kirk vigil. They're leftists. Groypers don't sing this. That's it. And what they tried claiming was Nick Fuentes and his fans use the song ironically. No, they don't. No, they don't. They just don't. That's not reality. They made it up to lie.
And I'm not alone in that. After Kimmel's suspension, many struggle to pick the offensive line out of his monologue, as YouTube is filled with comments under the video like, I'm still waiting for the offensive part. What did he say that got him fired? I'm rewatching the last...
Look at how insane this is. Right now, messages were released, I should say days ago, last week, where he said he could not negotiate. You can't negotiate with Charlie Kirk's hate. The messages seem strange, and I think it's fine that everyone's questioning them. My personal opinion is that the shooter crafted a series of messages intending to provide some reasonable doubt in a criminal court case, because that's all you need. So as though we might say, these messages seem very scripted, the left is saying Kash Patel scripted it. I doubt that. I think it's more likely multiple people were involved, and those messages were meant to, in a court case, If the boyfriend is implicated, they can say, look, there's me. I had no idea. And it creates doubt. These liberals live in a delusional state thanks to Jimmy Kimmel, who perpetuates it, saying, well, we don't even know that was offensive. It was offensive because the investigators came out and said, we know why he did it. And then you tried blaming Trump supporters for the murder of one of their greatest leaders. That's what was offensive. And you know what? It offended regular people, too, who follow the news.
Last week of episodes and haven't heard it yet. And one viewer from the Netherlands saying, it is even in the Dutch news. With a link to this, I watch this almost every day for a year now to stay covered for American news with a humoristic flow.
You watch Jimmy Kimmel and John Oliver for your news, and you will have no idea what is going on in this world. And this is what I think the problem is. John Oliver's going, but we all thought he was MAGA. Because your pundits lied to you and made things up intentionally to trick you. And John, there's no way I think I will believe that you did not know that.
The point is, Kimmel didn't denigrate Charlie Kirk or make light of his killing. The worst thing you could say is that he appears to have been wrong about the shooter's ideology, which, okay. But he was also pointing out that many on the right seem desperate to weaponize Kirk's death, an argument that's aged pretty well, given, you know, everything that's happened to Kimmel since.
Jimmy Kimmel got fired, according to the Wall Street Journal, because advertisers and affiliates soon called the network expressing concern over Kimmel's show. Executives at Sinclair and Nexstar, they own more than 60 local ABC stations, said they would preempt the show. Advertisers, the concern was that what he said was offensive, and it was so offensive it was noticed by advertisers without prompt. Nobody knew who his advertisers were going to be. The right did not start a boycott campaign. The right did not post a bunch of messages saying, target Clorox and whoever's sponsoring Jimmy Kimmel. The advertisers recognized that what he said was offensive to most people, and they did not want their brands associated with it. The affiliate networks saw the same thing. Now, Brendan Carr did make a statement on Benny Johnson's show, which I do believe contributed, but I don't think the affiliates saw that and were watching Benny Johnson's show. The affiliates recognized it in and of themselves, as did the advertisers. John Oliver is lying about Jimmy Kimmel.
Because that one line set off a firestorm in some corners of conservative media. And on Wednesday, Brendan Carr, the chair of the FCC, and James Cromwell, minus the raw sex appeal, went on a right-wing podcast and said this.
You know, when you look at the conduct that has taken place by Jimmy Kimmel, it appears to be some of the sickest conduct possible. Frankly, when you see stuff like this, I mean, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. These companies can find ways to change conduct, to take action, frankly, on Kimmel, or, you know, there's going to be additional work for the FCC ahead. And frankly, I think that it's really sort of past time that a lot of these licensed broadcasters themselves push back on Comcast and Disney and say, listen, we are going to preempt. We are not going to run Kimmel anymore until you straighten this out, because we licensed broadcaster, are running the possibility of fines or license revocations from the FCC if we continue to run content that ends up being a pattern of news distortion.
Yep.
Yeah, we could do this the easy way or the hard way.
Indeed.
As threats go, that is pretty clear. It's like
So what? The FCC is a regulatory body. The statement made by Brendan Carr was, if you are putting out false news on a consistent basis, there's questions over whether you will get what's called the news exemption under the FCC, which is special privileges that certain broadcasters get when they're doing news. If you are intentionally lying, or let's just say consistently getting it wrong, the FCC is supposed to come in and say, are you a news program? You are. Okay. Now, the argument they make is, he's a comedy program. You just saw it from John Oliver. A commenter says, I watch this for my news. What's the argument that the FCC should not be making these? Now, did he say, we're coming for you, we're going to get rid of you? No, he said the affiliates and the networks can deal with the spreading of misinformation. It's high time they do. And he's correct. I don't know why John Oliver disagrees with this, because it's exactly his position from a few years ago, that the networks should stop misinformation. We agree. Brendan Carr never actually lifted a finger for this. And now I'm dealing with liberals saying, you know, Donald Trump got on the phone and told him to do it.
Someone threw a brick through your window with a message that said, "Shut up or else," then followed it up with more clarifying bricks saying, "By or else we mean we will hurt you physically."
How about this? They told Jimmy Kimmel that he was actually going to be fine. Kimmel had planned to address Carr's comments on his show Wednesday night. Before his on-air appearance, Dana Walden, co-chair of Disney, spoke to the host about his plan. After the conversation between Kimmel and Walden, she and other senior executives thought the star's approach could make the situation worse. People familiar with the conversation said executives also discussed staff safety, including threatening emails that they'd received. Walden huddled with her team and Bob Iger before the two executives decided to temporarily take Kimmel off the air. She then informed Kimmel of the decision. The executive spoke with Jimmy. He said, "I am going to issue a further comment on this." They said that will make things worse. Kimmel was not going to apologize. When asked by The Hollywood Reporter, Kimmel was not planning on apologizing. I'm sure the executive said, because the Daily Beast reported that they were actually defending him up to that point. You're fine. These things happen. Just go out there. It doesn't even sound like they told him to apologize. But Jimmy said, "No, I want to address it." They said, "Don't, you'll make things worse." And he said he was going to. So they huddled together and said, "Okay, Jimmy, then we're shutting your show down." It sounds like Jimmy knows his ratings are in the gutter. And his 129,000 viewers in the key demo it's beyond cancellation territory. They've canceled shows on Fox that have 3 million per night. Let alone Jimmy Kimmel's 129,000 key demo viewers, 1.1 total viewership, as if the liberals are like, but 1.1 million is good. And yeah, 900,000 people, 50 plus. I'm not trying to denigrate older folks. The point is, you can't sell ads in that category. Not anymore. I mean, like, I'm being hyperbolic. You can, you don't make as much money. So in terms of funding a show, any one of these people recognize the mortality shelf is here. Boomers are dying. I'm not trying to be mean, but it's true. And as they do, his viewership will collapse substantially, in a substantial way, beyond the 43% month over month that it already did. He dropped from 2 million to 1.1 in 1 month. He lost 900,000. The network's looking at him and saying, why should we take this financial damage on a show that we lose money on that is collapsing? And Jimmy, my assumption is, wanted to get fired. And so here we are, liberals lying and obfuscating again.
This is the mafia, by the way, followed by, like in Goodfellas. Now, in the wake of those remarks, Nexstar, one of the largest owners of TV stations in the country, announced it'd be pulling Kimmel from its stations. That, in turn, seems to have triggered his suspension by ABC. And a key thing to know about Nexstar.
Why can't he just admit this? The story from the Wall Street Journal is from September 18th. Let me make sure I have all of this, all of my facts straight, because he published this on the 20th. So on Thursday, the Wall Street Journal, and also then we have the Hollywood Reporter, reported as well on Wednesday. This information was available to Jimmy Kimmel. I'm sorry, to John Oliver, the same person as far as, right? Why didn't he tell you that? The information was readily available. Now, by all means, you can like Jimmy Kimmel and be mad that his show's off the air. Fine. You can agree. Brendan Carr should not have made those statements. That's your opinion. It's allowed. But when the Hollywood Reporter and the Wall Street Journal both confirm Jimmy Kimmel was going to make further comments on the matter, he was not planning on apologizing. Advertisers, as well as affiliates, were angry. And so the executives thought he would make things worse and decided to pull his show. How is that in any way they were fearing FCC retaliation? Now, I'm not saying they weren't, but it's not the principal component of why this went down. The Daily Beast, as I mentioned, reported that the executives were actually going to defend Kimmel. It's because they're lying to you. Jimmy, John, they're all lying all the time. By omission, by obfuscation. Why didn't John Oliver tell you at the top of the show? Because his goal is not to tell you the truth. His goal is to manipulate you and trick you into thinking the wrong thing. My favorite example is when someone says, the news media will go, several Trump supporters were there. In a conversation we had, a man told us that they were going to kill insert personality. Now, what did I really just say? When the media writes something like that, they want you to believe We spoke with a bunch of Trump supporters. One of the Trump supporters threatened to murder. That's not what I said. I said there were many Trump supporters there in a conversation with a man. That's assumptive reasoning, manipulation used by the media all the time. So when they said at the beginning of the show with John Oliver that Jimmy Kimmel's show was pulled shortly after a threat from the FCC, they want you to believe that the FCC made a phone call to ABC and threatened them, so they canceled Jimmy Kimmel. What really happened is Brendan Carr made a threat to these networks on a podcast publicly, did not speak with the affiliates or the advertisers. Advertisers and affiliates contacted ABC concerned. ABC talked with Jimmy, who refused to apologize and wanted to further his comments. ABC executives thought that would make the problem worse. Advertisers are not at risk from the FCC. When Jimmy Kimmel said he would not back down, they decided to pull his show. That is the full detail of what happened. So I ask you this, John, why are you lying? Why did Jimmy Kimmel lie about the political motivations of the shooter? And more importantly, if he wasn't, to those who watch Jimmy Kimmel for their news, as he's already shown they do, why didn't Jimmy Kimmel, when he did that show, mention the press conference from law enforcement and the report from the Wall Street Journal, CNN, and as well as Louder with Crowder? I doubt he'd cite Crowder, but why didn't he say? Now, the available evidence presented by law enforcement and mainstream press is that this individual may have been a leftist. Why didn't he say that? Because he wanted you to assume things. He said they were trying to say he was anything other than one of their own because he knows he can't come out and explicitly state this guy is MAGA. He wants to say it in a way that you assume it's true. Just like Politics Girl, I believe her name is Lee McGowan, when she said he was like most shooters, came from conservative background, white, as if to imply that he was a right-wing motivated guy. She then lied and said the engravings on the bullets were markings from a manufacturer. Fake news. How do we navigate this? I can only tell you, I can bring a horse to water, but I can't make him drink. In this case, I can bring a horse to harbor, but you can't make him learn. The rest is up to you. Thanks for hanging out, guys. Be gone with you, John Oliver, you liar. Smash the like button, share the show. Stay tuned, more to come. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all in the next segment.